is to probably no one of the biggest left-wing propagandists, one of the biggest access journalists. He's an access journalist incarnate. Brian Tyler Cohen. He has been talking for a while now. I've been calling him out on his. It's weird. He's a propagandist, and he will talk against propaganda when he's talking about on the right, but he will basically admit that he's a propagandist. But it's very weird because he will say stuff like, this propaganda, misleading people, blah blah blah, echo chambers, and then he'll say something like, we need something like that on the left, and then he'll catch himself and be like, well, I'm not saying, this misinformation part or something, try to distinguish. But basically, he's advocating for left-wing propaganda. He's like, we already have it, but he's like, we need more left-wing propaganda. So that's the answer. Fight propaganda with propaganda. Rather than focusing on helping the American people, making the American people better, making things better in this country, being actually progressive. It sucks how they sometimes give the right wing such layups, like Actual Justice Warrior, right? Actual Justice Warrior, the YouTuber, because here's a progressive who, rather than pushing for, us to move in a more progressive direction, he wants us to move in the direction of the right wing, which is focus more on the messaging than the substance, right? So let's not reflect on the Democratic Party's failures, which resulted in a lot of their base just not being excited, not trusting them, not having a lot of faith in them, and not turning up to vote, which led to Kamala Harris losing. Let's not focus on correcting that error. Let's focus on, we want to better manipulate the American people than the right wing is. The right wing is dominating in terms of the manipulation of American people, right? In service of the establishment. So the left response is, we want to be the kings of propaganda, right? So they're trying to build this, I guess it's going to be like some kind of a joint channel of some sort, where I guess they're going to, kind of like a Daily Wire, right? Some of the top progressive channels, I guess, are all going to post their videos there. They're all going to promote the channel. They're going to do fundraising. I'm not saying these things are bad, but I'm just pointing out the reality of what they're talking about. They're talking about building a bigger propaganda network to fight propaganda with propaganda. But because, unlike just about anybody else on this platform, that I'm not here for views, I'm not trying to make money, I'm not here trying to get famous. So everything I do is good faith. It's impossible for me to be captured by my audience. I mean, I have aggressively called out, some of my top supporters. You can't do this. You can't do that and be a YouTuber, like, as a business. Like, that doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. I mean, especially when you're small, you're starting out, you're a very small channel, and then you go aggressively against some of your top subscribers. Like, that is, from a business standpoint, suicidal. But good thing is, I'm not trying to run a business, right? So I can speak freely at all times, because whether I get views or not has no consequence on my life. I do not desire in any way to be able to one day be like a YouTuber. I look at that as a very scary business to be involved in, especially in this market today. I think it's a soulless industry, because it's the algorithm is taken over. Everyone's just chasing trends and, whatever gets clicks. I can't work like that. For the same reason that I could never be sales, right? No disrespect to anyone that's in sales, but in my view, and I've done sales a little bit in the past, in my view, I mean, you can survive otherwise, but to really be good at sales, you kind of have to not have a soul. I mean, I guess you could just be a really good salesman. So let's put that aside. Like maybe you're just really good at it. But I think for the most part, why do you have to have no soul? Because you have to be willing to just focus on selling, right? Forget about who you're talking to and all that kind of stuff. You can't be thinking about that stuff. You got to thinking about making the sale, right? Because the minute you start thinking about, who you're trying to sell to, and do they really need this product, though, blah blah blah. While you're doing that, they're walking out the door, right? So here's the reality. Because I'm good faith, I'm always prepared to. I shouldn't just say I'm always prepared to. I always do self reflection, and I will question myself, question my beliefs, question my understanding of the world. I mean, doing a lot of that is what has brought me to be the person that I am today, the independent voter, not in a tribe. This has been a lifelong journey, where at key points in my life, I went through phases of self reflection and recognized a lot of problems about my personality and beliefs that I had. And I adjusted, I educated myself, and I, moved forward to be the man that I am today. But that has not stopped. I'm still always humble. And you may not recognize that, but I'm still always humble. I'm recognizing that I'm human. I got the same mushy brain that everybody else has. So I'm capable of being wrong about things. I'm capable of being manipulated, even though I specialize in propaganda. I know all the tactics that the people use. I am not immune to being manipulated by the very propaganda that I call out all the time. So, that being said, lately, with the way things have been going, I've been considering that I might be naive about, and I'm sure it's not the only thing I might be naive about, but I might be naive about what's the proper response, for the left in terms of addressing what's happening in this country. So I don't like propaganda. I don't support propaganda. I don't like news media that has a political prefix. So if you are, you know, ideology, fill in the blank media, I don't really support what you're doing. I don't support right wing media. I don't support left wing media. I don't support progressive media. I don't support conservative media. I support media. I want to just know the truth. I don't, put your bias and your ideology aside. Just tell me what is really happening in the world. And the same people who are promoting propaganda will tell you that that's not possible, but that's ridiculous. I mean, these same people like to, criticize, mainstream media. But the reality is, as bad as mainstream media is, journalism as a career teaches them the proper way to tell the news, how to inform people, how to be a journalist. They are trained in the correct way to do things. Not unlike if you look in construction, right? People will learn the proper way to do things. Or maybe let's be more specific. Let's say an electrician. Right? An electrician knows, can be trained on the proper way to do things, the safe way to do things. But many electricians will do things that are very dangerous all the time, right? So you can't look at that and say, well, the whole establishment of electricians, whatever the institutions are in terms of who is providing the knowledge and the certifications or whatever it is, you can't question it and put it down based on the fact that electricians will deviate from their training, right? So this is not unlike journalism. Journalists go to journalism school, in mainstream media, and they are taught the proper way to tell the news. But just because they are taught the proper way doesn't mean they actually do it, because You could teach me all the proper ways how to be objective, how to, correct for my own personal bias. Like, there are techniques for this. This is stuff that's been figured out, right? There's a way to do it, right? And people in mainstream media, they know this way. They went to school, they were trained on how to deal with these things. However, just like with electricians, there is an idealistic world where you follow all the rules and you do things the way you're supposed to. And then there's reality, the unfortunate reality. If you do journalism exactly the way that you're taught in school, you have a lot of challenges in terms of, let's just imagine in the world of boxing, right? If a lot of people in the sport don't follow the rules. So let's say no holds barred, right? So there's like, don't hit below the belt. Maybe you're in a part of the industry where, that's the standard. You don't hit below the belt. But if people are just ignoring the standard and they're hitting below the belt, you know, how are you going to survive? As you're going to be the one that's virtuous, right? I was taught that's not the way you fight. You don't hit somebody below the belt. So I'm going to be the upstanding fighter, right? The principled fighter. Okay, well, while you're being the principled fighter in a realm where, most of the fighters are not and they're hitting below the belt, you're going to be on the ground in pain, right? When somebody hits you below the belt, right? If you're not willing to hit below the belt like they are. So that's what happens in media. If someone on CNN follows journalism the way they were taught and are super objective and don't consider the ideology of the audience, don't consider, pandering tactics and such, they don't get the views, right? Which means they don't get the ratings. If they don't get the ratings, their show gets canceled, they get fired, and then how are they going to pay their bills, right? So, that being said, even though I advocate for real journalism, I don't want progressive media or conservative media. I want, truth media. I want objective media. I want real journalism, right? Whether it's independent media or corporate. I just want it to be objective, and I don't want to hear about your ideology, man. You know? So that's me potentially getting caught up in an idealistic world, because if you have a group of people that are no holds barred, and that group of people being the right wing media, and these people are being heavily funded by billionaires and millionaires, so they get a lot of money's funneling towards them, and they're incentivized to basically distract the people and help the 1% to trick the people, right? So you have one side that is talking about going after the 1% in support of the people. And then you have another side who is being funded by the billionaires so that they can be protected, right? You have people on the left talking about taxing the rich. So the rich don't want to be taxed more than they already are, right? So what do? You fund somebody like a Ben Shapiro to go and manipulate, regular people into thinking that this is the dumb idea and it's unfair and the billionaires are paying more tax than anybody else, and all kinds of stories which can get, regular people to vote against their own interests, right? So because of the funding, because their content benefits the elites at the top, that gives them a major megaphone which drowns out anything the left is doing. So, am I naive in my quest for real journalism? Because While let's say the left wing media goes in a direction that I want it to, which is to not be left wing media, right? And they're sitting there doing the right thing, but then they're fighting against people who are not doing the right thing and they're hitting them below the belt. So this means that you are empowering a group of people to basically set the narrative, to basically create a matrix, right, for people to be fooled by. And this is destructive to the country, right? So is Brian Tyler Cohen correct? Right? Fight fire with fire. They're doing propaganda, so you do better propaganda. I mean, my my desire is for the left to do better, right? The left via whatever party. In this case, it's the Democrats. If they could figure something out with a third party, great. But whatever the party is, not about the party. I want the left to push for delivering more for the American people. I mean, if you want to brag about this, so you deliver more for the American people and brag about it, great. But I focus on let's do the work first, right? Well, not first, because you should be doing it in parallel, but the priority should be doing the work. And then you also need to be doing the other part, which is very important, which is the message. The message is a critical part of this, right? You can't just do, because if you do the work and no one knows the work you're doing because you're being drowned out by the right wing megaphone, then it has little benefit, because if you do good work, but the people don't realize what you're doing, then you don't win elections. You don't win elections, then whatever work you do can be unraveled, right? Stopping the progress. So what good is it for you to get certain things accomplished and then that's it, you reach a roadblock, when because the people are not believing in what you're doing, they don't vote for you. So again, we end up going backwards. Um, I don't know. I got to spend more time thinking about it, but I would think that I don't know. I still think the most important thing is to do the work. Um, but I acknowledge that you can't just ignore this massive propaganda machine. I mean, yes, the left wing has propaganda for sure. Again, I call it out all the time on my channel, but they are but a mouse compared to the right wing propaganda machine. So, am I naive to be so focused on propaganda's bad while the country falls apart as a result of the left being drowned out? Should I instead focus on the results and less on the methods? Right? What's being done right now is not working. And again, simply delivering more is not, I don't think that's going to be enough. So I don't know, man. I still think that propaganda is not the way to go. I mean, propaganda is a thing, right? But that should be for the Democrats, right? Let the Democrats be the propagandists selling their message, right? They can pay for ads, They can speak to the American people and push, rah, rah, Democrats are the best, blah, blah, blah. But I don't want that from the media, man. I just want to know the truth about what's happening. I don't want the rah, rah from the media. So if anything, if I were a Brian Tyler Cohen, and I recognize the issue with propaganda coming from the right, if anything, I would, behind the scenes, speak to the Democrats and try to advise them about how they can do better propaganda, right? I don't have a problem with helping them to do propaganda because they're the ones who should do the propaganda, right? Because propaganda, you're promoting your team, right? You're promoting, you want to win elections, you're going to promote that we're the better party. That's what you're supposed to do as a political party. But the media should not be part of that. Now, don't get me wrong. Part of pushing your propaganda has to involve the media, but the media should not be your partner, right? So, for example, Democrats push their propaganda through their channels. They have YouTube channels. They have social media accounts. Push their propagandas out. They push the propaganda through advertising, right? And then they go on the media to push their propaganda. But again, the media should not be their partner in that, right? So if I'm a Brian Tyler Cohen, a Democrat wants to come on my channel and wants to push their propaganda, you're welcome to do so. But I'm not going to be a partner in that, right? So if you come and you saying a bunch of stuff that you can't back up or is inaccurate, I'm going to call you out for it. I'm going to push you hard on it, right? But that's not what Brian Tyler Cohen is pushing for, right? He's pushing for more what he already does. Democrats come on his channel. He gives them a softball interview. Meanwhile, every day, Republicans bad. Look at all those Republicans doing all this kind of stuff. And he doesn't have that same kind of fire for the Democrats, right? I think if mainstream media and left-wing independent media focused on truth, it would make it hard for the Democrats to hide. It would put them in a situation where the light would be shined on them in terms of the truth about who they are and what they are about and what they're doing and what they aren't doing, which would force them to do more. But as long as the media continues giving them cover, that allows them to not do as much as they need to be doing, which opens the door to right-wing media to exploit that. But I don't know. Tell me your thoughts. I'm just thinking aloud, I guess. And again, giving you a good faith sort of feedback on things. I will leave you with this. I am prepared to consider that I might be naive about propaganda because I guess if I could give an analogy, right? Let's go back to the fighting analogy. So let's say that I am some kind of a boxer, right? And a lot of boxers, break the rules and they below the belt stuff, right? And I'm the principled guy and I'm not going to do that. I'm going to follow the rules, right? And I go and I'm fighting this guy, right? And I'm following all the rules. And this guy keeps hitting me below the belt, throwing sand in my face and all kinds of things. And I know, based on some stories that I've heard, that based on what this guy's doing, my life is at risk. This guy could kill me or seriously injure me. Like, that's what's been happening. People go and they do boxing and, the other person they're fighting cheats and then they'll go all out and then people have died and whatever. So I know that this is what's happening. And here's this guy hitting me below the belt, whatever. Am I going to sit there and stick to my principles and allow this guy to put me in a hospital because I want to follow the rules and I don't hit below the belt. I'm sorry, but I'm going to put aside my principles in that moment and I'm going to defend myself and I'm going to do whatever it takes. So, if this person hit me below the belt, I'm going to do it. That doesn't mean I'm falling to the dark side and now I'm for doing whatever, but in the moment dealing with a situation, I'm going to do what is necessary. So right now, we're at a very dark moment in time in this country. The stakes are very high. So I guess in some ways, we're being hit below the belt. Sand is being thrown in our face. So am I advocating for standing up and allowing someone to put us in the hospital or take us out forever? Because I want to follow the rules of, of fighting and not go below the belt? Or is it time to fight fire with fire and go below the belt because the stakes are just that high? Tell me your thoughts. This is the Debate Me channel. Debate in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well.